From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Olumide Macaulay.
Good evening. Tonight, President Buhari agrees to address the House of Representatives on the security situation in the country amidst calls for more drastic action to curb spate of killings in Nigeria. Northern Elders Forum asked President Buhari to resign over increasing insecurity in the country, especially in the north. Court grants order restraining members of the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission from performing the functions of the NDDC board. And the United Kingdom set for mass vaccination as it becomes first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. Plus, business, sports, and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, 2020 Finance Bill passes second reading at Senate as senators propose sanctions for failure to remit government revenue into the Federation account.
And on sports news tonight, former Super Eagles coach Salisu Yusuf extends contract with Nigeria Professional League side Enugu Rangers till 2022.
The call has been loud and clear, and now the president says he is as concerned as other Nigerians about insecurity in the country and is ready to speak to the House of Representatives on the situation. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbadabiamila, told State House correspondents today that President Buhari had agreed to address the House as requested by the lawmakers. Honorable Gbadabiamila was at the presidential villa to convey the resolution of the House to the president.
He was ever so willing to listen, as is typical of Mr. President, the usual Democrat that he is. And what we basically sought was to convey the resolution of the House and to fix a date, which we did not fix, out of respect for Mr. President and his very, very tight schedule. What date will be convenient, and we have agreed on a date, and he will meet with the House to address the situation. I think he's more concerned than me or you. That's all I can say. Than me or you. You know, they say on easy lies the head that wears the crown. And we'll leave everything until when he comes to the House. Let me not preempt him. But all I can tell you right now, and the DS is here, the leader is here to bear me witness, he's committed, fully committed to the security of the welfare, lives and property of Nigerians.
Meanwhile, Nigerians have continued to express outrage over the killing of over 40 farmers in Borno State. And this time, the Northern Elders Forum, NEF, is calling on the president to resign if he cannot ensure the protection of lives and property of citizens. In a statement, the forum says the lives of Nigerians no longer have value under the present administration due to the constant attacks and killings of innocent Nigerians. The statement signed by the group's spokesperson, Hakeem Baba Ahmed, reads in part, "We have consistently drawn attention to lack of political will to fight the Boko Haram insurgency and other threats such as banditry, rustling, and kidnapping. We had offered suggestions on how the insecurity infrastructure could be improved and leadership of the military could be made more effective, obviously, along with advice and concerns from many other Nigerians. These have made no impression on President Muhammadu Buhari." The group notes that the current reality will make relocation of citizens and resumption of economic activities more difficult.
The facts on the ground support what we say. The president swore on the Quran as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to secure the lives of citizens. He has failed to do so over and over and over again. This is his fifth, sixth year in office. The situation under him is getting worse, and there is no indication that it is likely to improve. So what else is there? What else is left other than to ask him that if there is honor, what in democratic countries, in civilized countries, what leaders who fail to protect citizens, particularly at the scale and the level at which our people are dying, is to resign. Clearly, he has failed in the number one responsibility of a leader, which is to protect citizens. So yes, things have gone, they are worse than this, but we've taken our time to assess the situation. We didn't want to rush to judgment. We wanted to give him a chance. Like everybody says, leadership is very difficult. He has a very challenging responsibility, but 4, 5, 6, 7 years. The same president was saying 2 years before he assumed responsibility, he was saying to Jonathan to step aside and give him all others responsibility to run the country. So he's had a lot of time to study the situation. He's a general. He's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He's a military man, so he doesn't have an excuse about not knowing how to fight wars. He put people in charge. They're still in charge. We're losing this war. More internal security challenges are becoming manifest. More people are dying. Every single day, people die in this country. Life, truly, as we said in our statement, life has lost a value.
Staying with reactions on the Borno killing, the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Sa'ad Abubakar, has described the incident as the most gruesome murders carried out by the Boko Haram terrorists. He called on the country's leaders to rise up to the challenge of insecurity facing the country, while urging Muslim faithful not to forget to pray for God's intervention to end the crisis. The Sultan made the comments at Sokoto in an event.
We are most devastated with what happened in Borno some few days back. It's one of the most gruesome murders ever carried out in this country for such a large number of people. But we want to go back to Almighty Allah always. And there we have peace of mind because He does what He wants to do at the time He wants to and whom He wants. So we're not challenging Almighty Allah. We're thanking Him for opening our eyes the more for us as leaders to wake up to our responsibilities because He is going to ask us as we do meet Him. So we keep on calling our leaders to do what is right with the fear of Almighty Allah, to see that the insecurity challenges facing us, especially in the north, had been checkmated. Insecurity must be checkmated. And it's the responsibility of all of us to see how we can do so.
In Calabar, the Cross River State capital, the police have confirmed the murder of the Borno State Assistant Commissioner of Police, Egbe Eko Edum. The police public relations officer says Mr. Edum came to see his family after being away for a very long time before the ugly event occurred after his vehicle broke down along Murtala Mohammed Highway.
Information was the commercial vehicle he boarded, got spots in a particular spot, and he decided to use his foot, before his wife would come and pick him. So unfortunately, he met the hoodlums who used machete on his head and on his lower abdomen. For now, we are still investigating the unfortunate incident, but we are very sure it's this one chance robbers. So investigation is still going on.
Meanwhile, a Chinese expatriate abducted in Ekiti State last week has regained his freedom. The police spokesperson in the state, Sunday Abutu, told Channels Television that the victim was released yesterday night after a manhunt and pressure from police operatives. He said the Chinese man was released close to a town in Ekiti Southwest local government and that security agents are intensifying efforts to arrest the abductors. A police officer was also killed while another expatriate was shot by the abductors in the process of the kidnapping. Staying with security, some persons suspected to have been responsible for the killing of a first-class traditional ruler in Ondo State, the Olufo or by Israel Adeosi, have been arrested by security operatives. The monarch was shot and killed last Thursday by gunmen suspected to be kidnappers near the Elegbeka village while on a trip from Akure, the state capital, where he held a meeting with some other monarchs in the state. The commander of the Ondo Security Network Agency, the Amotekun Corps, Adetunji Adeleye, announced the arrests of the suspects in Akure adding that 4 persons kidnapped were also rescued during the search in the forest for the killers of the traditional ruler. The National Defense College is advocating the infusion of new ideas to tackle security challenges in the era of the COVID-19 pandemic. The commandant of the National Defense College, Rear Admiral Maxine Kadri, says this has become necessary to better address the emerging national security and economic issues arising from the health crisis. He was speaking at the opening of a conference on the roles of Nigeria's security agencies in the COVID-19 pandemic environment in Abuja. Meanwhile, the United Nations Women's Country Coordinator, Mrs. Comfort Lamte, wants state governors to use their political will to ensure adherence to the 35% affirmative action for women's inclusion in the nation's governance structure. Mrs. Lamte says the same political will the governments mustered to declare a state of emergency against gender-based violence should be deployed to address the low representation of women in elected office. Mrs. Lamte was speaking at a forum of the Nigerian governors' wives in Abuja. Our correspondent Gloria Umezoke reports.
Violence against women is a daily reality, demanding urgent action. The Nigerian governors' wives against gender-based violence, the United Nations, and governors are gathered here to intensify action to curb the menace in Nigeria. The underrepresentation of women in elective offices also became a central concern.
The success of your collective efforts in partnership with the Honourable Minister of Women's Affairs, which facilitated the declaration of a state of emergency by the Governors Forum in June 2020, is indeed commendable. I believe we can draw pertinent lessons from this strategy to tackle other persisting quote-unquote states of emergencies on women's rights in Nigeria, most notably the low representation of women in elected political office, which currently stands as the lowest in Africa.
The pandemic, according to the women, further illuminates the issues. Governors here who have been pushing the advocacy for higher women representation notes a few concerns.
In terms of treating issues of gender violence and addressing them, we have not done enough, I must confess. And that is a difficult place. So we're already laying down the framework, and I'm sure it will be too early to start assessing us now. Just wait until when we get to the middle of next year.
We're not doing this really as a favor to our women. We are doing it because it makes sense to us. It makes economic sense. It makes humanitarian sense. If we're serious about development, we have to be serious about protection for a significant population in our various communities.
The group of 25 governors' wives commit to an action plan that transcends beyond mere talk and is embraced by the United Nations and other partners. They are optimistic this move would engender equity and close perceptual gaps. Gloria Umezoke, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, a federal high court in Abuja grants order restraining members of the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission from performing the functions of the NDDC board. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television, Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari agrees to address the House of Representatives on the security situation in the country amidst calls for more drastic action to curb spate of killings in Nigeria. Northern Elders Forum asked President Buhari to resign over increasing insecurity in the country, especially in the north. Court grants order restraining members of the Interim Management Committee of the Niger Delta Development Commission from performing the functions of the NDDC board. And United Kingdom set for mass vaccination as it becomes first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. Gender-based violence is the current subject of discussion for many, including the Lagos State chapter of the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria at its ongoing 43rd annual conference. Experts attending this year's event describe gender-based violence as a pandemic within a pandemic because more light was shed on its occurrence in society during the COVID-19 lockdown. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf reports.
Globally, according to the United Nations, 1 out of 3 women experiences gender-based violence in their lifetime. This largely silent problem was amplified by COVID-19 lockdowns, when people were forced to stay together in close quarters. This is the major focus of the Lagos State branch of the Medical Women's Association of Nigeria at its 43rd annual general meeting and scientific conference. The meeting also features some distinguished men. Gender-based violence has hitherto been shrouded in secrecy and shame. But perhaps the UN-initiated 16 days of activism to end the scourge is bringing it to the fore.
Because it's systematic, it soon becomes institutionalized, and then it becomes supported, and that is where the danger with it lies, and that is why we have had a lot of social action to try to unpack it and to move us away from that.
The effects of gender-based violence are serious. Okay, physical effects, mental effects. You can have rape can lead to unwanted pregnancies, and when you get unwanted pregnancy, then you have unsafe abortion, which contributes 13% of all maternal deaths.
The Medical Women's Association of Nigeria seems poised to help break the silence and end the stigma.
We are also starting a helpline where we have doctors, colleagues, especially in mental health, who are ready to counsel 24/7.
The hope, as the 2-day conference continues, is that public and private alliances will be formed as a formidable force to end gender-based violence, which also includes violence against men and boys. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
And to the inclusion of women in governance, a federal high court in Abuja has fixed February the 5th, 2021 for hearing in the suit filed by 6 civil society organizations challenging alleged exclusion and marginalization of women in the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. They are asking the court to determine whether the refusal of the government to implement the 35% affirmative action policy is not unlawful and an arbitrary violation of the national gender policy, the 1999 Constitution as amended, and the African Charter of Human and People's Rights. They also want the court to determine whether the overwhelmingly predominant appointment of the male gender into the decision-making position of the Federation is not wrong, unlawful, and unconstitutional. And a federal high court in Abuja has granted an order restraining members of the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission from performing the functions of the board. In a ruling on an application by a civil society organization, Forum for Accountability and Good Governance, Justice Ahmed Mohammed restrained the NDDC Managing Director and others from parading themselves as board members of the NDDC. Justice Mohammed also granted leave to the applicant to apply for judicial review for an order of mandamus compelling the ICPC, sued as the 9th defendant in the suit, to investigate the Minister of Niger Delta, Senator Godswill Akpabio, and the 5 members of the board over allegations of 3 billion naira contract fraud. The court also granted leave to the applicant to apply for judicial review of the power of the President or the Minister of the Niger Delta Affairs to appoint Professor Pandey, Dr. Ojogwo, and others in an interim capacity as members of the NDDC board. Meanwhile, a federal high court in Abuja has rejected the application for the issuance of bench warrant against a former aviation minister, Femi Fani-Kayode, who is being tried for alleged money laundering-related offences. At the resumed trial in Abuja, the prosecution counsel, Mohammed Abubakar noted Mr. Fani Kayode's absence, saying that the defendant had been absent in court on 2 other occasions. The prosecutor then applied to the court to revoke the bail granted to the defendant, issue a bench warrant for his arrest, and order the issuance of summons on his surety to show cause why he should not forfeit the bail bond he endorsed. But the lawyer to the defendant, Mr. Wali Balogun, objected to the request and tendered a medical report claiming the defendant was advised to have bed rest until December the 4th, 2020. Ruling on the application, Justice John Soho held that the court was satisfied with the defense lawyer's explanations and found no reason to grant the application for arrest of the defendant. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission says the judicial sector is currently on top of the Nigeria Corruption Index between 2018 and 2020. This is contained in a report by the Commission presented by the chairman of the ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasunoye, at a meeting in Abuja. He, however, gave some insight into the report, explaining that the Nigeria Corruption Index indicates that both the public and private sectors are complicit in the high corruption levels in Nigeria.
The survey itself was to look at the effect of grand corruption. So when you are offered a huge sum of money, that indicates the stakes. And that's why we said a lot of these offers came around election petitions. And we interviewed lawyers, we interviewed judges, and many of them were responding to say, oh, yes, I was offered this sort of money, but of course I rejected. Okay? And the context were around election petitions, which is why the news reports carry the fact that, oh, it's not as if we were suggesting that we knew judges who had collected 9.4 billion. And of course, somebody would ask us, what have you done about it? So this is the outcome of a survey in which we had respondents. The respondents were judges and lawyers who had talked about offers of bribe. For lawyers, for example, they could have been offered by the litigants, okay, to say, please, let me see the judge. And the lawyers refused to do so. So aggregating the amount and suggesting that the judiciary took that is misleading in that context.
As part of efforts to find a lasting solution to the lingering industrial action by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, the federal government has set up a new committee to renegotiate the agreement it had with university-based unions in 1999. The Minister of Education, Mr. Adamu Ademu, says the action of the government is as a result of controversy that have trailed the terms of the agreement by both parties. He explains that the federal government team is expected to take another look at the agreements towards making far-reaching recommendations that will reposition the Nigerian university system. Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano has assured civil servants that they will receive all entitlements before December to reduce the impact of the hardship felt through most of the year. He made this known during the annual end-of-year parley with civil servants in Awka. Governor Obiano also reminds the state workforce on the need to re-strategize and help the state government overcome the challenges of the time by being productive.
Governor Willie Obiano arrives at the Jerome Udoji Secretariat Complex in Awka, the Anambra State capital, to a warm reception by the state workforce. At this parley with government officials and civil servants, he assures them of an improved welfare, including their entitlement before the commencement of the festive period.
I kept my promise for over going to 7 years plus now to make your welfare my #1 priority. I pay your salaries on due date 25th. When I was working in the bank, that's how they pay us. That's why I introduced it here, 25th of every month.
The current economic downturn appears to be a cause of concern to the governor, who is now tasking workers on increased productivity by cutting costs and curbing waste.
I want you to assist us in this recession by doing the following. You must help us to curb waste of all forms. In a recession where you're not making money and you still want to survive, you need to cut your costs.
And there are comments from the head of service who appreciates the governor for his support to civil servants.
As I'm talking to you, he's already paid the leave allowances of workers. He's already distributing bags of rice, the usual Christmas bags of rice to workers, and so on and so forth.
While some workers are rewarded for their exemplary service, bags of rice are also distributed to the civil servants ahead of the festive period. Governor Willie Obiano's administration believes that an improved welfare package for civil servants will serve as a form of motivation for productivity.
When the news at 10 returns, Finance Bill 2020 passes second reading in the Senate as the lawmakers propose sanctions for failure to remit government revenue into the Federation account. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back. We'd like to turn our attention to business news now. Here's Tenyola Shobowale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial star 894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Olumide. Welcome to Business News. The Senate has passed the 2020 Finance Bill through second reading. The bill is expected to adopt fiscal policies to respond to economic and revenue challenges caused by decline in oil prices and the impact of COVID-19. However, the chairman, Senate Committee on Gas, Senator Basi Akpan, says the finance bill must propose sanctions for heads of government agencies who fail to remit government revenue into the Federation account.
Mr. President, let me even say something about the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Most of the revenue-generating agencies still retains revenue they generate without transferring 25% as stipulated in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Therefore, we must look at this act to show what kind of penalties and consequences can be ensured in this amendment to make it more effective. That agencies, you've been clamoring and crying out aloud on agencies who generate government revenue, then retains them and expend them the way they like. So this is the time for us as a National Assembly to put in place and ensure and enhance those penalties that will make it unbearable for any agency who generates government taxes and does not remit in line with the provisions of the Extant Act.
The Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, has presented the state's 2021 budget estimate of 448.7 billion naira to the State House of Assembly for consideration and approval. The governor, who was in company of his Executive Council members, says the appropriation bill, tagged Budget of Recovery and Consolidation, will further strengthen the developmental drive of the state government and guarantee economic boosts in the face of the challenging times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our correspondent, Geoffrey Uzono, reports.
We believe that our budgetary estimates should be as realistic as possible. Accordingly, we are proposing a total budget size of 448,660,773,466 naira only for fiscal year 2021. This represents more than 20% increase over the 2020 revised budget of 300 billion only. From inception, this administration has prioritized the payment of salaries and pensions, and I wish to assure our workers, including the proposed 5,000 new enlistments, that they will receive their salaries as at when due in 2021. Ministries, departments, and agencies are also assured of prompt release of overheads to enable them run and deliver services to the people. Furthermore, the increase in the current budget over that of 2020 was also informed by a resolve to fight poverty with increased public spending, social assistance, and investment in targeted empowerment programs.
Elsewhere, the Ogun State Governor, Dapo Abiodun, has presented the sum of 339 billion naira appropriation bill tagged Budget of Recovery and Sustainability to the State House of Assembly for the 2021 fiscal year. The governor says his administration will leverage on technology and automation on internally generated revenue to address revenue leakages, just as he seeks the cooperation and understanding of residents to ensure the success of the proposed budget in the new fiscal year.
Capital expenditure in year 2021 remains focused on the completion of as many ongoing projects as possible, as well as the commissioning of new ones. We have also made efforts to ensure equity in the distribution of projects and programs. In the coming weeks of budget defense by each of the MDAs, the State House of Assembly will be provided with the list of some of the most critical projects which we must work collectively to ensure they receive adequate funding. Until projects reach completion, they do not deliver the dividends of democracy that our state citizens rightly deserve. In addition to government spending on capital expenditure, our administration has enacted the private-public partnership law to provide the regulatory framework which will help facilitate private sector investments in development of infrastructure in the state.
Away from the House of Assembly, all countries receiving emergency financing from the International Monetary Fund must commit to a safeguard assessment by their central banks. That's according to the IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva. Speaking at the International Anti-Corruption Conference in South Korea, she explained that the IMF has asked countries to commit to specific anti-corruption measures, including publishing crisis-related procurement contracts and recommended that special attention be paid to transparency and accountability, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Nigeria is one of the recipients of emergency loan from the IMF after it granted the country's request of $3.4 billion loan in April to help combat the impact of COVID-19 on the country's economy. Let's check in on the stock market now. Nearly 42 billion naira is knocked off from the total value of the equities market after profit-taking resurfaced across the 4 key sectors of the NSE amid a negative market breadth. Well, Bisi Adebayo has the details.
Thank you for joining us on the Stock Market Report. A day after entering the new month, the bull stepped aside for its market rival at the end of midweek trading session as investors decided to take advantage of the string of gains recorded from the previous sessions. Now, that sound from the beer tells you that the market's performance was mostly dominated by profit taking across 4 major counters of the NSE, in particular the consumer goods sector, and the result is a 0.26% drop on the market main index. Now, the impact of the sell pressure affected 22 equities consisting of mid-cap and some high-value equities like Nigerian breweries, GT Bank and Zenith Bank, and that's in contrast to the gains recorded by 19 equities which were led by ICO Insurance. However, traders say that today's performance does not mean the bull has gone to sleep, as the activity chart shows that the volume of shares traded today was higher by about 20%, and the profit taking seen today is only for a very short time. We'll see how far the bear can hold its temporary reign in the remaining sessions for the week. And that's it on the Stock Market Reports. I am Bisi Adebayo.
Thanks a lot, Bisi. Meanwhile, it's a slightly mixed performance across the board for some of the world's leading stock markets, following a combination of profit-taking on bank and energy stocks and reports of new stimulus talks by the U.S. Congress. Well, let's take a look at the closing numbers for Wednesday. tonight. I'm Teniola Shobowale. It's back to you, Olumide.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. If all goes according to plan, 23,000 youth across the country may soon be equipped with skills in an effort by the federal government to enhance their entrepreneurial capabilities. To realize this plan, the Federal Minister of Youth and Sports has sealed a partnership with the Industrial Training Fund. The agreement was signed by the two parties at the headquarters of the Industrial Training Fund in Jos, Plateau State.
With relevant stakeholders present as witnesses, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Sunday Dare, and the Director General of the Industrial Training Fund, ITF, Joseph Ari, signed a Memorandum of Understanding to facilitate the training of 23,000 youths in various skills across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory.
To the glory of God. Thank you, sir.
The document contains the scope of the program and what is expected of each party. The training will cover 21 trade areas, including information communication technology, facility management, health and safety, as well as photography, among others.
And these 21 trade areas would train, Your Excellency, over 23,000 young men and women, Nigerians. And that would mean 600 per state, including the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. So in 3 months after the training, we should be able to get 23,000 young Nigerians trained for employability or to be self-employed. Going forward, we can work out the little details as to how we can empower them further so that we can handle what you described as the huge population of young men and women.
It's all about youth and economic development, according to the Minister of Youth and Sports, who is confident that together with its partner, the objective of the program will be achieved.
Those that established the ITF had a good vision, because at a time like this, the ITF remains a central and critical partner in helping our youth to get the desired skills that they need. Beyond the 23,000, I trust that year on, would train more of our youth that will benefit from these skills.
With the signing of the MOU, Nigerian youths may be set for another opportunity in a journey that supports the federal government's efforts towards job creation, youth development, and entrepreneurship.
Still ahead on the news at 10. United Kingdom set for mass vaccination as it becomes first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. And more from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The UK has become the first country in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine, paving the way for mass vaccination. However, Prime Minister Boris Johnson says people should not get carried away with over-optimism, as approval of a vaccine doesn't mean the struggle is over. Let's join our London studio now, where Simon Pusey has more international news on Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The United Nations and Ethiopia have agreed to allow aid into the country's Tigray region, which has become the centre of a month-long conflict, killing hundreds and displacing thousands. A UN spokesman said an assessment mission will begin later. There has been no word so far from the Ethiopian government. Food and medicines are said to be running out for millions of people in the area. It comes after Ethiopia's state media has reported that a top official from the Tigray People's Liberation Front has surrendered. Karia Ibrahim is one of 9 executive committee members of the TPLF forces that have been fighting government troops for the past month. 3 Hong Kong democracy activists have been sentenced to jail for their involvement in mass protests last year. The trio, which include Joshua Wong, one of Hong Kong's most prominent democracy activists, had been found guilty of unlawful assembly. The pro-democracy movement has been stifled since Beijing introduced a controversial security law with harsh punishments. Wong has received a sentence of 13.5 months in jail, while Chow and Lam will be imprisoned for 10 and 7 months, respectively. The US Department of Justice is set to look into claims that lobbyists tried to use bribes to secure a presidential pardon. The redacted findings do not give any names, but the Justice Department says no government official is being probed. The news comes a week after President Donald Trump pardoned his former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who has been convicted in 2017 of lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russian ambassador.
This went on for 20 hours.
American news outlets reported that Mr. Trump has also discussed with advisors the possibility of pardoning his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and his family members, even though none of them have been accused of any crimes.
You're going to win Pennsylvania.
Meanwhile, US Attorney General William Barr has said that his Justice Department has looked for significant voter fraud but has found no evidence of it. Mr. Barr said that he has uncovered no voting fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. The Justice Department has also debunked the president's claim that voting machines have been programmed to skew the election results, as there is no evidence of that either. The United Kingdom is the first country to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. Britain's medicines regulator, the MHRA, says that the vaccine, which offers up to 95% protection against COVID-19 illness, is safe to be rolled out.
It's approved as clinically safe by the regulator.
The Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the first 800,000 doses will be available in the country by next week. Elderly people and healthcare staff are set to be the first to receive it. The UK has already ordered 40 million doses, which is enough to vaccinate 20 million people. Aid agencies say a low-cost strawberry-flavoured tablet for children living with HIV will be rolled out in African countries next year. The UN estimates that only half of more than 1.5 million children around the world that live with HIV receive any treatment. The bitter taste of the antiretroviral medication has made it difficult for young children to take it. It is set to be the first generic pediatric version of the HIV drug and will also be available for babies. China has landed on an unexplored area of the moon, the first attempt from any country since the 1970s to collect rocks from the satellite. The robotic spacecraft has started to drill into the surface of the moon to collect soil and will stay until Thursday before returning to Earth. The mission makes China only the third country to successfully reach the moon after the United States and the former Soviet Union. One of the world's largest radio telescopes used to monitor the stars for more than half a century has collapsed. The telescope featured in the James Bond film GoldenEye in 1995, when Pierce Brosnan as 007 famously scaled the structure during a fight. The 57-year-old telescope at Puerto Rico's Arecibo Observatory suffered damage in August and had been deteriorating since. Scientists from around the world use the telescope to look for signs of alien life and study distant planets. And finally, Israeli cow herders have ditched herding dogs for flying drones to boost efficiency. Drones have been used to give a better aerial view to the herders and also create a less stressful environment for the animals, as the buzz of the tiny rotors is more gentle than a dog's bark. The drones also allow the cow herders to have much larger pastures, thanks to the advantage of the view that they can offer. It's hoped the new technology will increase profitability as big herds can be more manageable. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Now for sports news, here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Olumide. Nigeria's Super Eagles will resume their quest to qualify for the African Nations Cup next year after failing to pick a ticket with 2 games to spare. The Super Eagles will travel to Benin Republic to face the Squirrels and also face Lesotho's Likwena at home in the remaining 2 matches of the qualifying series. This report takes a look at Nigeria's likely route to the 24-team tournament to be staged in Cameroon.
Nigeria's Super Eagles made a good start in their bid to qualify for the next edition of the Africa Cup of Nations after winning the first 2 matches.
Less so today, you would think, if things go to plan, but can Sierra Leone...
Expectation is high as the Super Eagles took on the Leone Stars of Sierra Leone in a double-header.
Back on the left, Zedu Sanusi.
The Super Eagles could only pick 2 points out of 6 in the double-header after a poor showing in both games, and calls for the overhaul of the technical crew led by coach Gernot Roy grows louder.
Nigeria shoot themselves in the foot.
When we hire a technical advisor, when we put our faith in the hands of some people, we expect some return. We're going to sit back, we're going to review what has happened. We'll review the entire team. We'll look at our players, whether they're qualified or not, whether they're ready for the team. We'll also look at the technical advisor. We'll also look at the entire people involved with football administration and the Super Eagles.
I'm sure before we go for the next tournament, 2 or 3 other players with Nigerian blood will be discovered, and they will be invited, and we will start all over again. And when we fail, they say, we are building a team. We are building a team. It has taken us 4 years without building a team. So the NFF and the technical should tell us how many more years do they want to build a team.
And there's the final whistle.
In spite of the poor showing, many still believe the 3-time African champions will qualify for the biennial tournament.
When they put their ass together and do the needful, Nigeria will get the result. It's so disappointing when we are here debating if Nigeria will qualify or Nigeria will not qualify. It should be our birthright, considering the fact, considering our record in Africa, considering what Nigerian players are doing abroad.
However, Nigeria's next game is against the Squirrels of Benin Republic. The last hurdle will be a home game against Lesotho, but have no mathematical chance of qualifying. For now, Nigeria leads the group with 8 points, and a ticket to Cameroon, where the tournament will take place, is still within reach.
7-time Nigeria Professional Football League champions Rangers International have extended the contract of head coach Salisu Yusuf until 2022. The former Super Eagles coach was handed a fresh contract following a review of his performance from the initial one-year deal, which the club's management described as impressive. Coach Yusuf says his target for the season is to reclaim the league title, which the Flying Antelopes won in 2016. In the UEFA Champions League, Russian side Krasnodar beat Rennes 1-0, while Chelsea hammered Group E rival Sevilla by 4-0. Elsewhere, Borussia Dortmund and Lazio settled for a stalemate, while Belgium side Club Brugge thrashed Russia's Zenit St. Petersburg. Despite resting key players, Barcelona beat Ferencváros. Cristiano Ronaldo's Juve also beat Dynamo Kiev. In other matches, RB Leipzig defeated Istanbul Besiktas, while PSG beat 10-man Manchester United at Old Trafford. That's a wrap on sports news. It's back to you, Olumide. Thank you, Ayo. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today agreed to address the House of Representatives on the security situation in the country, as requested by the lawmakers following the calls for more drastic action to curb spate of killings in Nigeria. Also today, the Northern Elders Forum asked President Buhari to resign over increasing insecurity in the country, especially in the north, if he cannot end the killings by bandits, kidnappers, and terrorists. And the United Kingdom government announced that it is set for mass vaccination as the country emerged the first one in the world to approve the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Do have a good night.